The Pegasus Snoop files continue to dominate Indian politics. For the second day in a row, both the houses of parliament were adjourned as the opposition demanded a debate on the allegations of surveillance. The TMC has declared it will not let parliament function till there is a debate on the issue, while the Shiv Sena has demanded a joint parliamentary committee probe into the charges of snooping.
Protests.
Sir, I lay on the table. मेरा आप सभी से निवेदन है कि अपने अपने स्थान ग्रहण करिए और बहस में भाग लीजिए.
Hangama. The opposition and Narendra Modi government are on a collision course.
Please अपनी सीट पर जाए.
At the center of it all is, you've guessed it, the Pegasus hacking scandal. These were the scenes in both houses of parliament on Tuesday as soon as it convened for the second day of the monsoon session. Right from the word go, the opposition targeted the government, demanding a joint parliamentary commission probe into the alleged spying scandal.
There are issues of concern. We should not read only in the newspapers or see in the television, sir.
I agree with you. Anandji, I got the point.
My submission I have made, sir.
I agree with you totally. There is a need for 267.
The Congress led the charge, seeking Home Minister Amit Shah's resignation.
ये इल्जाम सीधे तौर पर हमारे गृह मंत्रालय पर लगता है, तो गृह मंत्री को इस्तीफा देना चाहिए और दूसरा इसको जुडिशियल प्रोब होना चाहिए.
The Congress's ally in Maharashtra too joined the bandwagon, seeking a joint parliamentary committee probe.
प्रधानमंत्री गृह मंत्री की एक जिम्मेदारी है कि देश के सामने आकर सच बताए.
The Trinamool Congress insisted it won't let Parliament run until a debate on the snooping scandal takes place.
We would urge this government to come out and lay on the floor of the House, yes or no. Is India a client of NSO? Yes or no? And we can guarantee that the minister or the home minister will not be able to say no, because India is a client of the NSO.
The centre has vehemently rejected the charges.
There is no government का even an iota of link is there in that. But in spite of that, if they want to raise through a proper procedure, to a proper rule, let them raise. Government has already made a suo motu statement.
The BJP has termed it a smear campaign by the opposition.
समाज में एक विषाक्त वातावरण पैदा करने का जो कुत्सित प्रयास हो रहा है, राजनीति के घटते हुए गिरते हुए स्तर को प्रदर्शित करता है. विपक्ष पूरी तरह नकारात्मक भूमिका में के साथ में है. वार्ता में
In the meantime, the whole scandal is getting only bigger. The latest revelation claims that Pegasus software may have been used to snoop on Karnataka ministers and their aides before the Congress JDS government was toppled in 2019. On the list were secretaries of then Chief Minister H.D. Kumaraswamy and Congress leader Siddaramaiah. G. Parameshwara, the Deputy Chief Minister at the time, was also a potential hacking target.
It is a crime according to me. It's a crime committed by the Government of India. It has to be raised in both the houses of Parliament.
As politics rages on, the French daily Le Monde has made new revelations, claiming diplomats of Pakistan, China were potentially hacking targets in India. And not just them. The newspaper alleges diplomats of friendly nations like Iran, Afghanistan, Nepal and Saudi Arabia too were on the snooping list. With Kamaljit Sandhu and Anand Patel in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
So you have at this moment a situation where the government is coming out aggressively, calling those levelling these charges obstructors, and they're trying to deliberately derail what's happening in Parliament. You've got the opposition gunning for the government, demanding a probe. Now in France, a probe has been ordered because prosecutors have opened a probe into allegations of Moroccan intelligence using this Israeli software Pegasus to spy on French journalists. So 10 different charges will be examined, including whether there was a breach of personal privacy, fraudulent access to personal electronic devices and criminal association. Two investigative websites, Mediapart and Le Canard, have also filed suits in French courts. So that's the approach France has taken. Is there a need for an investigation in India? If there is, who will carry out this investigation? Will it be, as some opposition parties are demanding, a joint parliamentary committee probe, a JPC? Will it be a Supreme Court monitored probe, or is there no need for a probe at all because the government has said that all surveillance was authorized? Joining me on this broadcast, representing the ruling BJP, its spokesperson Dr. Sambit Patra. Squaring off against him from the Congress party, Supriya Shrineth. We've got Mishi Chaudhary, well-known technology lawyer. We've got NS Napinai, advocate in the Supreme Court, founder of the Cyber Sathi Foundation. And Shivam Shankar Singh joins us, author, is tracking issues of cybersecurity closely. I want to go across to Dr. Sambit Patra first. What's your plan, Dr. Patra? Does the government in India intend to order a probe? We've seen in Parliament, the government has denied the charges of illegal surveillance. Is that where you hope this matter ends? Or will you follow the lead of France, order a probe by a government prosecution investigation agency? Should this be a court-monitored probe? Should it be a JPC? Or should there be no probe at all? Dr. Patra.
See, Rahul, give me a patient hearing for a few seconds. There are three important points which I want to emphasize. Point number one, as far as the data is concerned, the 300 categorical names which have been released as far as India as a country and quote-unquote potential targets in India are concerned, it is by the wire. And in fact, I have the article in front of me, Wire being the partner in the international consortium. And the Wire categorically mentions in this article, and you can see right from the beginning I've amplified it, they use a word may in the article. Pegasus project, how phones of journalists, ministers, activists may have been used to spy on them, number one. And they begin by saying, I quote, the presence of a phone number in the data does alone not reveal whether a device was infected with Pegasus or subject to an attempted hack. However, the Pegasus project, a consortium of international news organizations, believes the data is indicative of potential targets identified in advance possible surveillance attempts. And if we go through the whole article, we would find time and again that words as may, might be, assumptions, we cannot take the name of the judge because nothing is confirmatory. Such kind of phrases have been used time and again. So I can conclude that most of this right now is in the realms of, I would say, assumption. Most of it is fictional rather than facts. So whether we should have an investigation about a fiction or fact is a question that we have to discuss tonight with you. Number two is...
So just hold that. Let me put that question to Supriya Shrineth. I'm coming back to you, Dr. Patra, in a moment. You're saying at this moment we're in the realm of a lot of conjecture and speculation where fact and fiction aren't fully defined. Let those be fleshed out properly before we get into what kind of a probe there should be and who should be leading the investigation. Supriya Shrineth.
So just for the benefit of viewers and just to make a point across to people who are listening to this, the reality is that this isn't about India alone. This has happened in 45 countries, 17 investigative news media organizations with the top-notch like Washington Post and Guardian of London and Le Monde of France and Radio France and, you know, SOAR of Belgium. Many of these top-notch news investigative agencies have done this. They have put out a list. There has also been forensic evidence. There have also been lab tests of few of those phones, 10 of them belonging to people who were in the targeted list in India, and it does show remnants of the Pegasus software. That's the first point I want to make. The second point I want to make is that NSO, the company that owns the Pegasus software, has once again asserted they only sell to vetted sovereign governments, which means it cannot go in private consumption. It cannot be sold to any agency that they may want to, only to sovereign governments. The third thing, and this is an important thing, it's not just about the leader of India's principal opposition. It is not just against sexual harassment charges made by a woman and 11 of her coordinates being on the targeted list, or for that matter, an election commissioner in an election year, or for that matter, a political strategist in a poll-bound state and the relative of the sitting chief minister. But it now appears that phone numbers on the targeted list were also of the sitting deputy chief minister, the secretary of the chief minister, the secretary of, a former chief minister, and the PSO of a former prime minister. This violates the Official Secrets Act, the IT Act, the right to privacy, and more than anything else, this amounts to stalking of women. I am not even talking about within the Modi government, the people who have been, put under surveillance. My basic thing is, if the government believes this is all concocted, it is being foolhardy. Because this has been done by reputed organizations. If you still believe it's concocted,
okay, so hold that thought, Sambit Patra. 16 countries, multiple journalism organizations working on the story together. Your government is suggesting that it happened because of the fact that the monsoon session was starting. Now, is that not too much of a global coincidence? The same story is breaking in France, in Europe, it's breaking in Belgium, it's breaking in the United States, and somehow it's breaking because they want to obstruct the monsoon session. So, is the government losing the larger global picture which needs to be considered? And you mentioned may, could or might. In the way that the story is framed, they could just be careful so that they don't get sued in a court of law. That's just the way that they've structured the story. 10 phones were forensically examined in India. In that examination, it has emerged that there was tampering with the phones, that these phones were infected by the surveillance software. Is that not reason enough to consider a larger probe? Dr. Patra.
So first and foremost, Rahul, I was just about to complete when in fact you went to Supriya, and I believe I'll just complete it by saying, well, as far as the government's role is concerned, the government has been categorical, both in 2019 when WhatsApp issue had cropped up as far as Pegasus is concerned, and yesterday, day before yesterday I mean to say, when this whole issue came up, the government was categorical in denying that the government had nothing to do with any kind of snooping as far as the software Pegasus is concerned, because there are some SOPs, standard operating procedures laid down legally through the Indian Telegraph Act as well as to the IT laws 2000, and if at all we have to intercept any phone calls, etc., that can be done legally. We did not have to go through an illegal means. That was the reply.
No, but there isn't clarity at this moment on whether these phones were tapped legally or not. So was Rahul Gandhi, Abhishek Banerjee, Prashant Kishore put under surveillance? Was there authorization? Was there no authorization? That's not known at this time, Dr. Patra.
I'll reply to that. And I was concluding by saying that still, despite all this, if there's some amount of confusion as far as the opposition is concerned, India is a robust democratic country. Please discuss it on the floor of the parliament rather than creating ruckus and going to the streets. Before hitting the streets, please discuss it with the lawmakers of the country. Let the people of this country see what you put forth on the floor of the parliament, what the government answers on the floor of the parliament. No one can snatch away your right. So I believe, rather than debating on television channels, of course,
now that's an important point Dr. Sambit Patra makes, Supriya, that let there be a debate in Parliament. Your leaders, speakers can put forth the opposition's perspective, the government can put forth its defense. In Parliament, you typically find it difficult to lie, or at least that's the hope and assumption. Therefore, you can pin them down in Parliament rather than disrupting Parliament and not allowing legislative actions to go through.
You want to know what do they do in Parliament? The former IT Minister Ravi Shankar Prasad, who's also the party's chief spokesperson, yesterday said 45 countries are doing it. Why talk about India alone? So he's admitting that the Indian government has done it. There is only one moot question. Did you or did you not use Pegasus? Why is the government not giving a categorical yes or a no? Ravi Shankar Prasad in the floor of the House, as then IT Minister, had said unauthorized surveillance had not happened, hinting that authorized surveillance had happened. Yesterday, the minister, poor man, Ashwini Vaishnav, while he was reading, little realized that he was under surveillance himself and actually refused to lay the paper in the House because that paper would be circulated to members. He walked away with the paper. He knows what that means. They did not even lay that paper down. My simple thing is, the kind of instances that we have seen amount to treason, amount to violation of the Official Secrets Act, compromise national security. Why is the government shying away from a probe? Let there be a Supreme Court monitored probe, and because there is electoral democracy that has been hurt.
No, but why don't you debate this in Parliament, Supriya?
Why is the government
Supriya, why don't you debate this in Parliament, and why don't your speakers raise this issue when Parliament is functioning rather than disrupting Parliament?
Absolutely, 200%, 200% we want to debate it in Parliament. But look at what happened. They made a suo motu statement. They did not even lay the paper in the floor of the House.
Sambit Patra, there's a very simple question that's being asked by every single person watching at this time. And the question is this.
Pegasus, yes.
Does your government use the Pegasus software? did we purchase this from the Israeli company NSO? If so, when? If not, is that something that you want to say on record? The government seems to be giving an answer to suggest that whatever surveillance happened on authorization, without answering clearly the fundamental question about whether this software was used or not, Dr. Patra.
See, first and foremost, the government has been categorical, quite clear that this software, that is Pegasus, has not been used for snooping, hacking, etc. for any person in India by Government of India. This was there on paper, black and white, day before yesterday, the press release of the government. It was circulated throughout. No. I did not shout anywhere. Just let's not intervene. Let's not intervene. So it is there. Pegasus has not been used to snoop. And as far as authorized, unauthorized is concerned, the government in its reply, and Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav also has been categorical in stating that there are laid down norms, standard operating procedures under the Indian Telegraphic Act as well as the IT Act 2000, and the sections also were mentioned that if we have to interpret anyone, these are the laws according to which legally we would be interpreting. Of course, not through any software or malwares. This is what the government has categorically mentioned. Okay. As far as the moot question that you asked is concerned, Rahul, the moot question is, did the government use Pegasus to snoop? No, it did not use Pegasus to snoop. Okay, you're saying, did the government use Pegasus? Question mark. Do you want to answer that piece also? Just 1 second. Did the government use Pegasus? Question mark. Because the second part is whether it's authorized or unauthorized. But the first part is, did we use the software and do we acknowledge having used the software? Do you want to answer that, Dr. Patra? See, as far as I am concerned, I am the spokesperson of the party. You would be aware of the fact that the government would not be reporting to me as to what it buys and it does not. So, of course, whatever is in public domain, I would be able to reply to that. And in public domain, it is mentioned by the government that they have not used this malware software called Pegasus to, in fact, spy on anyone. Okay, Mishi Chaudhary, we have a situation where the government's come up with a very strong, aggressive counter to say that the charges are untrue. There's no indication of whether there's a probe. In France, a probe has been ordered. Do you believe in India there is an investigation that is called for? Who should do this investigation? If it's a government-run investigative agency, activists will say, you know, this is the government probing the government and therefore it cannot be trusted. If it's JPC, then there'll be all opposition parties there as well. That will be politically acrimonious. And therefore, who should probe and how should we proceed? Nishi.
Okay, great. Thank you. First of all, yes, there should be a probe for sure, because everybody has assertions to make and statements to agree or disagree on these issues. I think that we have seen this public theater earlier in 2019 also, when the WhatsApp vulnerability had been exploited. And that time a lot of noise was made, and certain said, oh, we are issuing a notice to WhatsApp itself. WhatsApp went and sued NSO in the Northern District of California, and a lot of material is coming out of that case. A lot will be known. Second thing I will say is that the Standing IT Committee, Mr. Tharoor is the chairman of that committee, also was informed that time that why is something not being done, an investigation is not being ordered. Why I'm telling you all of this is that we've gone through these circles, everybody has yelled and screamed, and what the public is right now being told is that whether it is the ruling party or the opposition, there's just going to be a lot of discussion for a little while and then everybody will go about their businesses. Now, if a JPC is going to happen or an IT committee is going to look at it, then the public needs to see what those proceedings are. Those proceedings, per the parliamentary procedure, are not going to be public, which is in contrast to other democracies. The second thing I'm going to say is that an RTI response, which the current government's minister relies on, where that information is public about that we didn't use it, is actually a no response. They have neither confirmed nor denied. What they said in that response was that no such information is available to the undersigned CPIO, which means we do not know. The same thing Mr. Patra has just now said is that I am a spokesperson, so I do not know. Now, there is a government and there are procedures. The procedures, as they have said, is Section 5 of the Telegraph Act and also Section 69A and B of Information Technology Act. There are conditions under which you can carry out certain processes. I would really like to know categorically what exactly was here when you were snooping on the leader of the opposition. Is he a threat to the security of the state, the sovereignty or integrity of the country, or any of the categories which are laid out in those acts?
Okay, NS Deepan, that's the point that you need to respond to. The point
last thing I will say, but it's what has happened is not even allowed in the law, because the law does not allow to surreptitiously install a software without anybody knowing and snooping. It is very different from legal interception for particular purposes of investigation, etc. And if executive is going to do its own investigation here, it's like me checking my own examination papers. That's why we need parliamentary and judicial oversight, and the public also needs to be known so that we are not sitting out on the sidelines and watching, again, one political party go after the other.
Ms. Napinai, do you believe that there should be either a judicial investigation or a parliamentary probe? Which of the two might be better given the highly polarized nature of Indian polity? Or do you believe that there is no need for an investigation because, as Dr. Patra says, a lot of this in the moment is in the realm of conjecture and speculation?
These are very difficult questions to answer, Rahul, but the crux of it is this. Now, just to take off from what Mishi just said last, she is assuming the truth of what is being accused at this juncture. So what we are discussing today are very serious allegations, but the bottom line is they are still only allegations.
No, but that's the point that we are making now. These allegations need to be probed.
Yeah,
ma'am,
exactly.
There is an allegation of somehow that an allegation needs to be probed. The question is by whom?
An inquiry is necessary. So you do need an investigation or inquiry because allegations cannot otherwise move towards the next stage. But for any investigation or inquiry to start, the very first step that is tried and tested under Indian laws is for prima facie proof that something has happened. Would a mere list amount to it? Would an inquiry report of third parties, private parties, or even investigative journalism amount to that?
Let Shivam Shankar Singh respond to that. At the least, there should be some prima facie evidence suggesting tapping. All you have are a bunch of numbers. You can add anybody's numbers to that list, Shivam, including yours, mine, or Dr. Patra's or Mishi's. Does that by itself mean that there should be an investigation? That's the point that Apina is asking. Respond to that.
So one part of this is that there is ample evidence that Pegasus was found on the phones of some journalists. That has been concluded by global bodies who do forensic investigations of mobile devices. This is now known to us. The words that are used in the investigative report, like maybe and might have been spied upon, are used because the list is longer than the confirmed people. As Dr. Patra pointed out, these words are only there because not all names can be confirmed. Some people, the list is from 2018-19, some people have lost those phones. Some people have changed their phones. Some people have basically don't want to turn in their phones for privacy concerns to a private body to investigate. But Pegasus has been found on phones in India. This is a fact that has been established now. Any assertion to say that it was not the government is actually much scarier, in my opinion, because that means either a foreign government was spying on Indian journalists, on Indian opposition leaders, on Indian judges, which is a much larger concern.
Okay, let Dr. Patra respond to the point that Shiva makes, so that if it's not the government that is snooping, and yet this Pegasus software has been found on the phones of opposition leaders like Prashant Kishore and of some journalists and editors, that's even more reason why there should be an immediate investigation to find out which agency globally is doing this or which private player is up to no good, Dr. Patra.
See, Rahul, as far as Prashant Kishore having, his name has been mentioned in the list, but did he get the phone technically investigated, forensically investigated, and whether Pegasus was found in his phone and Rahul's phone is something which has not been concluded.
No, in Prashant's case, it is said that the Pegasus phone, the Pegasus infection was found even on the day when he met the Gandhi family, which is as recently as July. So, which is when the meetings took place. They still had signs of infection, which is what came out when that phone was forensically examined, Dr. Patra.
Okay, so I firmly believe, and I stick to my words, See, I believe totally in what the government says, that government has not been into snooping. But as far as this serious issue is concerned, because this is a democratic country and we should have answers to question, so I firmly recommend that the only platform and the best platform where this should be debated, discussed, threadbare is the Parliament. So why don't our leaders discuss that on the floor of the Parliament? And I welcome
but in Parliament
the opposition party.
Dr. Patra, how does an investigation take place in Parliament?
Who's responsible for tutu mehme?
You will say you're not guilty.
So
Opposition will say off with their head. How will it be established? As Mishi was saying, there has to be a thorough investigation carried out on the basis of digital forensics.
Let me give you an example to this. Let me give you an example to this. Supposedly we say that we don't believe in the executive or Parliament is not the domain where in fact this should be discussed, and supposedly we leave it to the judiciary. The Supreme Court, the highest body of judiciary, that is the Supreme Court. Remember what happened in Rafael's case? Despite the judicial body hearing the Rafael's case, despite it coming out with 2 judgments, despite the CAG's report, the opposition still does not believe the Supreme Court. They gunned down, in fact, literally they went with the guns blazing against the Chief Justice of India then. So whom do we believe is a question that you have to ask the opposition?
That's a point, Supriya Shrinay, because take the Rafael case, for example. Even after the Supreme Court gave a written clean chit to the government in the investigation that was carried out under the Supreme Court's observation, you still won't accept it. Therefore, Sambit Patra can say, even in this case, even if the SC were to probe, Rahul Gandhi and Supriya Shrinay still won't accept what the SC says.
No, that is not the point, and I will tell you why that is not the point. This is a very serious matter. This amounts to treason, breach of national security, breach of the Official Secrets Act. This has to be probed by Parliament. This is not about discussion and debate. The Joint Parliamentary Committee or a Supreme Court investigating arm has to probe this matter. This is a very serious matter. Snooping on citizens. Let us for a minute say that the government did not do it. Then who did it? Because this software is sold only to sovereign governments. That's the point. The government is running away from a probe. Why is the government running away from a probe? And as far as Rafael is concerned, Rahul, France has launched a criminal investigation into Rafael, probing its sitting president, its former president, and India's company owned by Anil Ambani. Why is the government so quiet on it? Why? And new things have come to light. New facts have come to light. So let's not get carried away by Rafael. The reality is that this is a very serious matter and the government has to answer questions. Snooping on citizens. This camera phone here, belonging to a female journalist, gives a hacker access to what she does in her bedroom. And that is a serious offense. That is stalking of the worst kind. Imagine this happening to any of us. Imagine this happening to your and my family members. People have access to your phone cameras. Imagine this happening to young girls.
Unless there is a proper investigation,
and the government is saying we will discuss it in Parliament.
These charges can spook people out. Now, nobody knows whether your phone's being tapped, not tapped. There must be clarity. In the government's own best interest, there must be clarity and the charges are untrue. They must be proven to be so, because otherwise people will look at their phone and they'll leave it. Bhai, isko dur karo, soenge to isko dur rakhenge. We don't want the phone anywhere close to us, because it creates that specter of concern.
So remember, as far as cyber crime is concerned, it's not just Pegasus. I mean, remember there are malwares, 1,000 kinds of malwares, etc., which in fact compromise your phone, hack your data. So of course, cybercrime is something which has to be taken extremely seriously, not just Pegasus and not just what the government does or does not do. Secondly, well, you want investigation. The opposition says that JPC should be done. No, just think it wisdom-wise. I mean, like before the investigation, the precursor of any JPC, etc., is a debate and discussion on the floor of the Parliament. You cannot jump to a conclusion. You cannot have an investigation without a debate or discussion. A hullabaloo on the floor of Parliament is not going to solve the issue. My simple suggestion, as in fact in your report, as pointed out by Vice President Venkaiah Naidu ji, that well, yes, we will have a discussion. We should have a discussion is what the Vice President said. So why don't have a discussion?
No, sure. You made that point. Now, one of the most disconcerting aspects of the Pegasus spyware is that unlike earlier, when you actually had to receive some kind of a message which you had to click a link on, or at least open the message or open an email, and that's how the malware would get installed, the company NSO has now been able to develop technology which is a zero-click attack, which essentially means that your phone can be infected without you having to take any action or without having to make any misstep. So even if you don't click on a link, open a message or answer a call, they can still install Pegasus into your phone. So that shows the level of sophistication of the software, which basically means that you, me, everyone watching at this time are sitting ducks.
No click on a link. No answering a phone call. No action from the phone's user. Yet your phone could be under attack from Pegasus. The most powerful, the most potent spyware that is almost impossible to detect. It's called a zero-click attack. And it helps the spyware gain control over a phone without human interaction or human error.
The simplest way to tackle this problem is by making sure that your phone is running the latest software update. The second thing is what you can do is that there are a lot of tools available in the market that can be used to detect these spyware attacks. And the third and last possible way is by tracing your search history.
So how exactly does a zero-click attack work? Most of these attacks exploit software which receive data even before a device can know whether what is coming in is trustworthy or not. iPhones are especially vulnerable to unassisted attacks with the Mail app. iOS 13 onwards, the phones become vulnerable to zero-click attacks too. iPhones have also been widely targeted through Apple default iMessage app and the push notification service. On Android phones running version 4.4.4 and beyond, the vulnerability is via the graphics library. Attackers have also exploited vulnerabilities in WhatsApp, where a phone could be infected even if an incoming malicious call was not picked up.
इस सॉफ्टवेयर की मदद से टारगेट को हैक करने के लिए टारगेट को कोई एक्टिविटी करने की भी जरूरत नहीं होगी। यानी अगर कोई हैकर किसी को Pegasus की मदद से हैक करना चाहता है तो वो उसको एक फोन कॉल के माध्यम से भी हैक कर सकता है।
Once the phone is infected, a spyware like Pegasus can view everything from contact lists to messages and internet browsing history and send all the information to the attacker. But can you prevent your phone from zero-click attacks? One of the things you can do is to ensure that all operating systems and software are up to date. Do not sideload any app. Download all apps only through Google Play or Apple App Store. If you are still paranoid, you could switch to browser instead of apps for checking mails and social media. It's not convenient, but experts say it's more secure. Bureau Report, India Today.
The Snoopgate scandal has put the spotlight squarely on the NSO Group, the multi-million-dollar Israeli tech firm, which is the architect of the world's most invasive spyware. India Today tracks the company that's forever lurking in the shadows.
A spyware that threatens democracies worldwide. Pegasus can infect your smartphone, steal all that you do on texts, emails, Facebook, Skype, WhatsApp, and your contacts and location. Meet the architects of the world's most invasive mobile kit. A multi-million-dollar firm called the NSO Group. An Israeli company sued by WhatsApp in 2019 for allegedly sending spyware to about 1,400 smartphones worldwide. A company accused of supplying software to the Saudi government to allegedly spy on journalist Jamal Khashoggi before he was killed. Welcome to Herzliya in Israel. That's where the NSO Group came into being more than 10 years ago, founded by these two security entrepreneurs. Both believed to be the alumni of Israel's Unit 8200 Signals Intelligence Arm. In 2019, India Today tracked down NSO's original den in Tel Aviv's Northern District. That when the company came at the center of the astonishing cyber attack on WhatsApp.
You can see the building of NSO company, one of the most mysterious and suspicious cyber companies here in Israel. Last week, NSO got involved in a controversy following their decision to hack WhatsApp.
NSO shifted base long back from this plain-looking complex at Herzliya. It continues to work in the shadows. Executives show up on global technology circuits peddling their ware, but they choose to stay tight-lipped with the media. When we confronted them at this Paris Expo 2 years ago, that's how the company officials evaded the questions.
Who did you sell the Pegasus spyware to, ma'am?
No. We talk about it. Whatever you want to know, please send us.
We have written to you, ma'am. You have not replied to this. You can easily reply here.
It's not true. We just talk about it. You can send me your email. We will send you our comments, okay?
Ma'am, a simple question. Did you sell the spyware?
Excuse me.
Or rather, did you sell Pegasus to the Indian government?
Excuse me. You can send us your request, please, and we'll send you our comment.
As much as you can reply on the email, you can reply here as well, ma'am. It's the same. I just asking you for a small comment, ma'am.
If there is order in the house, then we can.
Political fury in India and across various countries after the latest reports suggested NSO's phone hacking spyware might have been used to target opponents, journalists and rights activists.
Honorable Speaker, sir,
the Modi government has rebutted the reports.
The monsoon session of the Parliament. This cannot be a coincidence, Honorable Speaker, sir. In the past, similar claims were made regarding the use of Pegasus on WhatsApp. Those reports had no factual basis and were categorically denied by all parties, including in the Supreme Court.
Like before, the Israeli company was quick to issue denials. NSO insists it sells technology only to vetted law enforcement and intelligence agencies to prevent crime and terror acts. Bureau Report, India Today.
You know, there's also the larger question which we need to look at, which is about whether India needs to update its surveillance laws. Because at this moment, while you've got provisions under the Information Technology Act of 2000, you've got provisions under the Indian Telegraph Act under which we do surveillance. Sambit Patra, there is nothing which actually permits the government to install malware. So this whole idea of installing Pegasus type software on people's phone, at this time, it's not just about whether there was illegal surveillance, but even if you answer to say that you were using Pegasus software, that by itself is complicated because the government doesn't have doesn't have permission under existing law to install this kind of malware on people's phones. So that by itself is a big issue that needs to be looked at very carefully, Dr. Patra.
And this has been denied by the government on 2 occasions, remember. And only day before yesterday, when all these allegations were thick and they came out new, in fact, the government denied, saying that we have not used this malware to infect or infest any of the phones to snoop them. So the government has produced a paper to this regard.
No,
and
sir. What's happened is the government has denied using this software for illegal, unauthorized use, saying that all the surveillance that we do is as per established procedure, which requires the Home Secretary to give his sanction, and that's how it happens. It doesn't mean that you've categorically said that we haven't used this software. Using the software itself is a legal grey area. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Rahul, if you read the statement, I mean, you are trying to read it in a different way. I am presenting it in a different way. The government says that if at all we need to intercept any phone, we do it through the legal route, that is through the Indian Telegraph Act, Section 5, and through the Section 69 of the IT Act 2000. We do not use Pegasus, which is illegal to infest anyone's phone with. So the government has been categorical. Maybe they have not used this word, but the meaning derived out of it is we have to interpret the phone if at at all we have to, through the legal route. We have not used the illegal route of Pegasus that the government has mentioned. While I was watching your report, I heard Ashwini Vaishnav putting a very important point. Remember, in this debate also, WhatsApp's allegation that probably they were hacked by, or in fact they were infiltrated by Pegasus, came up in 2019. But in December 2020, in fact, on the floor of Supreme Court, the same WhatsApp denied these allegations, saying that no, we are sure that the Pegasus in fact had not
just
infiltrated
yesterday the
into
global
our system.
CEO of WhatsApp, sir, just yesterday the global CEO of WhatsApp has put out a whole thread of tweets. If you check out, his name is Walkhard, you'll find that he's accepted that NSO did in fact find a vulnerability in WhatsApp. So he said this yesterday. That's the global CEO of WhatsApp.
So then I don't understand, Rahul, as to why in fact he said something different in the Supreme Court of India. In the Supreme Court of India, if you would in fact
final words,
get the
Supriya
research right
Shinath,
now, they had denied it.
How and what do you think should be the next and most logical step?
I think a very detailed probe needs to be done by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, and a JPC needs to be set up. Please understand, the allegations that are being raised hurt electoral democracy. If this is not a Watergate moment, then I wonder what is. You are snooping on India's main opposition, on people involved with the electoral process, on a constitutional head, on a woman associated with India's Chief Justice. These are serious national security threats. This is serious treason. I will only say one last thing. If you believe all of this is false, go ahead and file cases. Go ahead and raid NSO if you at all want to. File cases against all these 17 news investigative agencies. Why aren't you doing that? Sitting here and saying all this is false is not going to help. If you believe you have truth on your side, go ahead and file cases. You are known to do that.
You're asking for a raid against NSO.
Washington Post
NSO happens to be in Israel. That's a bit complicated to send the ED or the CBI to Israel. But these are very serious charges.
They went to search.
These are very serious charges.
Everything is possible.
They need to be looked at. We will track this story very carefully. For the time being, Dr. Patra, Shivam Shankar Vij, NS Nipinai, Mishi Chaudhary and Supriya Shinath for joining me on the Newstrack. Thank you very much. We'll track the story very carefully. Coming up next, the world's richest man is now a newly minted astronaut. Jeff Bezos returned safely after a 10-minute space voyage. We'll get you the details on the other side.